This is Kentucky's Voice Radio, covering the latest state and local issues with Tom Fallbush, Bob Scott, and Jim Waters.
Okay. Nestled in the Midwest of America lies the great Commonwealth state of America. Commonwealth, not state. One pictures our Commonwealth as bluegrass hills, horses, good old boys. That's the landscape that it presents to most of America. But do not be fooled by the physical landscape that you see, because it can quickly become the landscape of politicalism that is tainted by the left and by the liberals. We have seen that we become victim to the establishment, even in our Commonwealth here. It has far-reaching effects, and it's what most Americans are leery of. My name is Diana Starr, and this is Kentucky's Voice. I'm going to start out with putting the elephant in the room. If I had a sound check, I would trumpet loudly. Isn't that a play on words, trumpet? About this. So I want you to just imagine for one moment, I want you to take your minds to a certain place. I want you to think about, what if everything that's going on that you think is for real was a game of chess? You see Elon, you see Trump, you see controversy, and you see contention. But what if this was all put together to be able to fool the Democrats and to be, once again, liking Elon so that we could get, here we go, the elephant, the BBB, the big, beautiful bill. We know in the state of Kentucky, we have those that are adverse to it, Senator Rand Paul, other people. Everybody has their right to look at the bill, educate themselves, and say, hey, this is what I don't like about the bill. But I want to tell you that there's a lot of fear-mongering going on with that. So imagine, and if you could sift through the hype and the media and make yourself educated to what is really going on. Is it Elon and Trump really at odds? What does the BBB say that scares you? For one thing, the first number one thing is Medicaid. I've had even my family come to me and say, I'm scared my grandchildren aren't going to be on Medicaid anymore. False. Now, a lot of this is my opinion from research and study. You have to do the research for yourself, but don't listen to the hype and assume that everything that you see is not an optic designed to distract you, and maybe an optic to make the final chess move. Or some would say in sports, the Hail Mary. There may be a Hail Mary at the end of all of this. Medicaid is not being cut from those that need it. Medicaid is simply being trimmed to disseminate from the real people that need it, those who sit at home and don't work, those that can keep Medicaid if they agree to hourly wages, the able, the ones that are just, can I say just lazy? I'm going to just throw it out there. That's the way it is. That is what the Medicaid in this BBB says. The BBB says big, beautiful bill. It doesn't say big, perfect bill. Are there things in it that people disagree with? Yes. For one, the ceiling deficit. People don't want that. I understand why they don't. They don't want their grandkids to be able to have to pay for that. But let's focus once again on the things in the bill that need to be changed, that need to be focused on, and that is Medicaid. We need to get rid of the fraud. We need to bring back the integrity. And once again, what we need, especially in Kentucky, we need to get on the same page. We need to look at things objectively and say, okay, this is good. Make yourself a list. This is good, this is bad. This is what I agree with. This is what I don't agree with. That is how I do it. So I want to see if the big, beautiful bill is doing more for us than it seems. Elon, however, it appears, and I want to say appears because of the hype, that they are at odds. And once again, what if they aren't at odds? What if this is what I have been reading about? What if this is an optic to make the Democrats come to his side and therefore do more cuts that need to be done in the bill? We all know about health care and reform. We know that the health care across the board needs reform. But you can say for one thing for sure, that Medicaid is not going to be cut. Knowledge and your research, Kentuckians, is paramount, because you can't get the opinion of someone. It's like a bowl of soup. If I have a vat of soup and I just start with the base, let's just say there's a base soup. If I put onion in it, does it change the flavor of the soup? Yes, it does. When you taste that soup, will the flavor be changed? If you put a turnip in it, which is your perception and your opinion, will that change the flavor of the soup? If you think of it in those terms, you will come out with a totally different perspective of what is going on in our society and in Kentucky and in Washington. We must fight for the things that are valuable, that need to be fight for. We don't need to fight for the things that aren't there. Moving further along with health care reform, I was this weekend at an event. It was a very unique event. I feel like it's going to really blow up. It has the support of many of Washington, RFK, Make America Healthy Again, and it's called the United Doctors of America. In this initiative, which was comprised of doctors, healthcare workers, politicians, actors, all that are conservative Christians across the United States, that said, hey, this healthcare needs to be stopped the way it is now. People don't get into the doctors. When they do, they get 2 seconds, because big hospital systems say, and make the doctors comply. You must see 5 patients an hour. Do you get the quality health care you need? No, you don't. So at this United Doctors of America, they addressed these issues this weekend with great success and great applause, which says to you, no more egos. They admitted they have egos. They admitted they're not doing what's right, and they want to hear from the people. We will talk further about that in the future, and I will tell you that I wear many hats. This is my Make America Healthy Again, because I believe in order for us to have a productive society and continue to move on and make progress, not only does the big, beautiful bill, in my opinion, need to pass with differences. They've still got to take it to the table. But I agree that you, as an American, have a right to make your decision. The hatred that exists, and I see this through the political system, through Kentucky and across the nation, is that we forget the opinion that you have the right to disagree with me. If your values and your morals coincide with mine, I will say to you, there's no hatred here. Tell me why, and I will tell you why. You must remember, with the conservatism, the Christian, and morals, don't let down on them. But if you say that you want to vote for this or against this, I want to tell you why I feel like I do and you feel like you do. This is part of what Kentucky's Voice is going to try to do, and that's educate you on the different issues, that you can make a sound, effective decision on what you really believe in. Not with just social media, not with hype, not with everybody saying Elon's talking bad about Trump, but what you can read and get knowledge from responsible people like the Kentucky's Voice. So I'm moving along with the Medicare issue and the health care reform, and I'm going to tell you a story why we need it. I am a diabetic. 6 months ago, in November, I stopped getting my diabetic strips. I'm a senior citizen. We all know what that costs and what that feels like. For 6 months, I could not get my strips because to insurance issues. I finally got them in May after I contacted my senator in my state. There was a glitch. Now, why did this happen? When we know what our insurance cost. When I was at the hairdresser's, I asked her a question. What is your number one? What is your number one concern? She said, you know what my customers say? Finance, the cost of insurance. That is what's killing us Americans. So after 6 months of not obtaining my strips, I finally get them. People, we have to have reform. We must have a change. Some change is not perfect. It's not the way we want it to be, but we have to look at the big picture. We can change things later. And so we have to be able to open-minded, open your mind and imagine, shut your eyes and fill yourself with knowledge. For me, I fill myself with knowledge and prayer because the Bible says one thing. It says, without a vision, the people perish. And without knowledge, you'll perish. So this is Diana Starr on Kentucky's Voice. And I'm going to, the next segment, talk further about health care reform and some other issues in our country. Remember to call 502-571-0970. Text the calls. We really can't take the calls in, but we can take text all day long, 24/7, 365 days, 366 days. 571-0970. Text us with your opinions, your questions, and your concerns. So we want to hear from that. So that's me and I'll see you in how many seconds? I do. I keep talking and I want to say one thing. This is my first time. Let's admit this. If you're not learned in certain things, admit it. What's wrong? I got it. I've got it done. I'm telling honesty. You'll see me again in a few minutes. I'll keep talking. And every mistake that I make, forgive me ahead of time, because that's what people do that are Americans. Yep. Diana Starr. I'll see you in a few minutes again.
Now, back to Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
I'm back. This is Diana Starr, the very nervous Diana Starr, with her very first segment. This segment is sponsored by the Garmin organization, who say we don't follow headlines, we lead with conviction. They believe in something different. When families are uncertain, they act. When communities are stalled, they build. The Garmin organization is focused, fearless, and built for impact. Visit garminorganization.org. Okay. I want to clarify something that I said at the first of the segment. There were two different issues that I addressed, and they both were concerning health care. One was about the big, beautiful bill and the Medicaid that fear-mongering is doing. I know I'm expounding on it, but I want to make it clear what's going on about being afraid of something that you don't know something about. And that's what's happening with the big, beautiful bill. And I wanted to make sure that I address that up front so that you could open your mind and, like I said, reflect and imagine. The second thing that I brought in was about health care reform. And I wanted to let you know what had personally happened to me with Medicare so that you could so we could relate that personalization between each other. What is your story? What happened to you with Medicaid or your Medicaid or Medicare situation? Because both of them have needs that need to be addressed. The Medicaid situation is making a lot of people more angry because of the immigrant situation. Let's throw that in there. I didn't aim to do that, but as the ideology comes to me about it, what I hear is this. Everyone that's on Medicaid that's an immigrant gets it free with there was no repercussions. There's no accountability. And people are angry about that in America. And at every turn, President Trump is being stopped. The judges of America are being corrupted. They're making indecisions not about Medicaid, about the privileges and the deportation, which leads me into another story that I have for you. I have a story about Boulder, Colorado. I don't know how many of you have heard about the Boulder, Colorado story. If you've watched the video, it's heinous. And the story itself is heinous. And it's where an immigrant torched, because of anti-Semitics, torched people and had victims that were dead and in the hospital. Some of them didn't want their names released. Let me make it perfectly clear that my position, my Diana Starr's position here, is that I support Israel 100%. I support the Jews. I support that. So any anti-Semitic fact or something that comes against them, I find horrific. So when someone decides to kill someone because they believe that Palestinian people should keep the Israeli hostages, then I find that troublesome. Then you find out further that he is an immigrant. Of course, he was arrested. He killed people, rightly so. But his family also were illegal immigrants. Some people call them illegal aliens. I call them illegal immigrants. In fact, I found out that back in 2023, their work visa had expired, and they hid from public so that they wouldn't get caught. They recently had a daughter that graduated from high school. How this slipped by, I don't know. But they, too, were getting whatever they didn't deserve for not being citizens of the United States. But what I find more disturbing was this. Our judges and what they're doing and what is happening to our judges and where is the corruption coming from. It's from within that our country is destroying itself. The U.S. District Judge, Gordon Gallagher, granted a request from the family of the killer, Mohammed Sabri Solomon, to block the family's deportation after U.S. immigration officials took them into custody for deportation. Now, I want to know, on what planet do we set the standard? Are they illegal? Are they legal? Why do they get differences? Because he's a killer, we give them grace? And what right does the judges have to stop ICE, that is mandated by the president, to deport illegal aliens? Ask, did they take a purple pill, or did they drink something special, or what is going on? Why are the judges of our land no longer upholding the Constitution and the law and the executive orders of the President of the United States? This is a travesty. As you know, one judge got arrested for doing such a crime. I heard that she's in trouble. I present to you that U.S. District Judge Gordon Gallagher, you need to be held accountable. This man just killed people. They lost lives. They were Jewish that were protesting for the release, Jewish Israeli citizens that were held by the Palestinians. He set them on fire. He threw Molotov cocktails, and you're saying, "Oh my gosh, I'm horrified." But you know how many people don't get horrified? The ones that don't want to hear that. If you're an American citizen, pay attention to what's going on in your country. It's an escalation of the law being tainted. It's escalation of the disrespect for the laws of the land. Colorado is a liberal state, but for this judge to say, hey, this is what Gallagher wrote in his order. The court finds that deportation without process would work irreparable harm. An order must issue without notice due to the urgency of the situation. What urgency of the situation for the family? What about the families that were murdered? What about those families that were murdered? So this is happening across our country. Judge after judge saying, no, this is illegal, this is illegal. It's not illegal. They were illegal to begin with. They due process because they were already in illegalities. They weren't citizens. They were citizens. I think that it said that they were citizens of Egypt, if I recall right. But the family members haven't been charged. They haven't been charged. Solomon's 45 years old. He's got 5 children, and they're trying to appeal to that sympathy card that, okay, as many are, the sanctuary cities and stuff. But Homeland Security says, Christie says, hey, they're getting processed for information that you can make an informed decision, that you can make an educated decision, like I said before. Because things like this, you say, well, Kentucky's not going to happen. You're wrong. Kentucky already has taint. It already has underneath, what do I want to say? What's the word that I want to say? It has underneath already corruption. That the core of our values, as we've always been known, like I said, Kentucky's been known as a good old boy state. Don't think for 1 minute that underneath the corruption isn't starting. And as we know, it comes from within and comes without. So this is the kind of thing that Kentucky's Voice wants to make sure that we bring to you. 571-0970. So as you look around and you start to look at all the judges and what they're doing, we have judges that now are trying to seek nomination for the U.S. Supreme Court. And you'll hear about those in the future on this show. But those are the changes that we need to make. The judicial system needs to be expunged. Why are you fighting against President Trump? I want you to write down and think about what 3 things do you feel like President Trump has done wrong? What 3 things do you feel like that President Trump has done right? I guarantee you the things that he's done right will outweigh the things he's done wrong. And that's inclusive of the BBB. So I'll be back with you in a moment. And I'll be less nervous than I was the first 2 times, I can assure you. This is Diana Starr, 571-0970.
to Kentucky's Voice Radio online at kyvoice.org.
Welcome back, everybody. This segment is sponsored by the Garmin Organization. We don't follow headlines, we lead with conviction. This is their motto. When families are uncertain, we act. When communities are stalled, we build, they say. The Garmin Organization is focused, fearless, and built for impact. Visit GarminOrganization.org. So welcome back, and we're going to continue to talk about the same kind of thing and why knowledge is important and why do we feel that some people get their ideologies on emotion. We can't, the founding fathers had to work through their emotion to build the Constitution and the Bills of Rights. Did their emotions flare up? Absolutely. But we had to set the standards that would be timeless and the standards that we still need to stand to today. That's not changed. We have to remember the importance of political awareness for Kentucky and for the big, beautiful bill and for all bills is that, yes, we get upset because there are things to be upset about. But go past that. It's like when you pray and the Bible says, be anxious for nothing, but everything with fear and supplication, bring your requests before the Lord. It's kind of the same thing. You need to say, okay, I am fearful. Fear-mongering needs to go. You're not supposed to fear. You need to say, okay, I'm fearful that my granddaughter is not going to get food stamps because her mother won't work. But I want, once again, to reiterate and to push upon you that the knowledge is the power that we need for this country. And why do the judges, who some were appointed and some in different levels are that run for that position, why do they get to go against that? What makes them exempt from law? What makes, for instance, I'm going to just throw a little wrench in here, but what makes Jerry Nadler exempt from the law? Jerry Nadler, research it, find out who he was. He was just found to be possibly a traitor with drone information and harboring illegals in his office. There's so many people that feel like this puts me above the law. When the Democrats, before President Trump got in, all they said was over and over again, no one is above the law. No one is above the law. But I submit to you, did Fauci ever get arrested? Did Hunter Biden Jr. ever get arrested? No, none of them ever did. Yet now they cry and moan and protest against the fact that, oh, you're going against illegal immigrants and ICE is doing this illegally and it's not constitutional. But it is constitutional. So who is above the law? What is your thoughts on who is above the law? I say no one. I say no one is above the law. Whatever you do has to be adhering to the law. Otherwise, we have chaos. And in the handbook, Nazi handbook, when chaos ensues, then what happens? We destroy our country. So in the midst of all the great things that Trump has done, all the things that he's doing, we can be distracted by methods and judges in the land that want to turn your attention away from the things that you need to really know and turn your attention to something ridiculous like Boulder, Colorado, which has happened in other states. So we have to make sure that we know that the principles of the political scene always involve staying informed. You must stay informed. That doesn't mean you just read X. That doesn't mean you just look at Twitter, which is X, or TikTok, they have a lot of good content. You do hear information, but it means you yourself have to take accountability as citizens of America and Kentucky that you know what's going on. This is my country. This is my Commonwealth. That's what you have to say to yourself. You're not. I used to say when I gave speeches that patriotism is never convenient. And it's never convenient. It's never going to be convenient. It's a decision that you make as a citizen that I have rights. And I want to make sure that the rest of the country has rights before I criticize, critique, and just say across the board, that bill's horrible. Well, what does that bill have good in it? I tell you one thing that I learned this week from a mentor, and he told me that within that bill, there is school choice scholarships available. You know who's fired up about that, and this should give you a flag? The teachers union. Kentucky, what do you know about the teachers union here in Kentucky? What do you know about it in the rest of the world? I'm sure you know a lot about it here and what they have done and the money they have put forth to put in candidates that will fit the narrative and the agenda so that judges can make any decision they want. That's just the way of it. So when you're looking at a bill that you know people like the teachers union does not want, why? Why? The bill's available to read. It may be lengthy. It is enormous. And they're not through with it yet. It's going back to the floor. And there's going to be things made, which I referred to back why you should think about the Hail Mary that may be going on. I'm trying to reiterate and to impress upon you that you can sit for a moment, open your mind, and imagine in a Twilight Zone situation where you will say, oh, that could never happen. Ladies and gentlemen, it happens. It happens all the time. And unless we have made ourselves aware and made the decision that we are going to go forth and do what we want to, once again, it's not going to be convenient. It's the get up and do. It's not setting and say, today my dog has a toenail hurt and I cannot attend this rally. I cannot support this person. I cannot talk for this person. I just say that there is no excuse. If there is an excuse for you, and there are excuses, obviously, we're not going to talk about the ones that are excusable. If there is an excuse for you, I could give you a list. I could give you a list at my age. What could be an excuse why I would not fight for my country? But I refuse to sit and gripe about the things without making a voice heard. If we don't have Kentucky's voice to lead our leadership, then we have nothing. If we don't have Kentucky's voice to also critique our leadership and say, whoa, wait a minute, this isn't good for me. This isn't who I want. And I'm not talking about, once again, the dissemination of opinions about who you want to vote for. I'm talking about the base core values that we all stand for and that Kentucky should stand for. Before we find ourselves a sanctuary city, before we have Big Daddy Bashir make some other decision for us and decide this is the way it's going. Because let's face it, friends, if Kentucky was totally not taken as pure, my first monologue, if it wasn't already starting creeping, crawling taint across the landscape, then we wouldn't have a Democrat governor, would we? What happened? We ask ourselves those questions. What's going to happen when this bill doesn't go through and we find out that all along it wasn't what it seemed to be? What happened when we can't make a voice, give our opinion, and say, but I'm going to support my president who might know something more than me? I don't for 1 second believe that Elon and Trump are at odds. I don't for 1 second. I believe there's a bigger play here. I said it earlier. I'm going to say it again. So I implore you to understand the political scene, not only in your commonwealth, but also in the big picture, because it influences your leaders here that will take it to D.C. and influence what happens there. This is the big picture. There is no longer time for on the fence. There's no longer time for you to say, I'm this, I'm that. You have to make your decision by education and informative, like Kentucky's Voice, of formative information, not the mass that you would come home and feel like taking a shower. And you say, well, what is that supposed to mean? Well, I'll leave it to your imagination. If you get in the muddy pit, do you get muddy? Yeah, you do. But it has to be an individualistic choice, but it has to be a choice that is open to listening to others. And we promise Kentucky's Voice to try to provide you with the facts and all the information you need to make the decisions for yourself. That's what this is for. It enables you to make those choices that align not only with your values and your morals, but your interest. Whether you're voting, whether you're protesting, or just any kind of initiative that needs to have support. Do you know numbers matter? For all the times that I have seen a list of volunteers for a specific thing that want to make a difference, 250 people will vote on that list. I will come. I will be a volunteer. When the work has to be done, 15 show up. This is a reality. And the same way that it's a reality that you're trying to be across the board, that Medicaid is being cut from you. Did you know that 1 in 3 Americans in Kentucky are on Medicaid? I bet you didn't know that fact. Because they said, hey, why do I have to pay for it when what I can do is get on Medicaid? I can meet criteria. I can lose my job. I can stop my job. 1 in 3. Do you know the enormity of that number? It just blows my mind when I heard that number. And I said, most people don't know that. Why don't we know it? Because in looking at the fear that we're facing, that Medicaid is going to disappear, we haven't delved into what's really going on with Medicaid. So that's the things that we have to find out for ourselves. And you can trust, you have to trust certain information that you get. You have to be able to embrace those people that present to you an open-minded fact. 571-0970 is the number for texting with your questions, your concerns, or just feedback, or that you like what you hear and what's coming up next on the next segment. That's what we want you to do. We want to hear from you because it's important for you to tell us what is next. What do you want to be informed about next? I am Diana Starr, and I'll see you in the next segment. And it will be a different one than you heard before. So you'll see me real soon.
Back to Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
Hey, this segment again is sponsored by the Garmin organization. I said Garmin organization. The Garmin organization is a conservative organization, and what I like about them is their motto and their mantra. I want you to visit them, garminorganization.org. And we're back. We're back. Welcome back now. So I'm going to go into a different sort of segment here, and while I'm waiting, I'm going to have a co-host come up, and I think he's going to poke the bear a little bit and give me a little bit of a, hopefully soon. But I want to tell you a little about who Diana Starr is. Diana Starr is an organizational, let's say, strategist. I'm doing an organizational strategist. And the reason I'm saying that is because I wear many hats. I was like you 4 years ago. I did nothing. I stayed at home. I wasn't involved in politics. Till my husband got me involved. And after that, it was one thing after another. As you can see, my Maha hat here. I may wear this. I may wear this. Are you on, Jim?
I don't know, am I?
Are you on, Jim? I'm for RFK here. RFK all the way. I've met RFK. He was great. Can we hear you?
No.
Okay, that's fine. So this is rapper style. See how I've got my hat kind of backwards or over on the side? One thing they make fun of me here at the station, not really. They find out that I did, in the midst of my political beginnings, I was approached because I was going to put on an event with General Michael Flynn. So I flew to Florida to meet with the people there that would help put on the event. And in the interim of it, I met a rapper that was MAGA all the way. That's Forgiato Blow. And he's probably got so many MAGA songs, I can't even name them. And so we were just having a little repartee. I'm easy to talk to, I'm a little shy, as you can see, not really. And he said, hey, why don't you come to the studio? And I said, sure, I would love to. And he said, how would you like to do a song? I said, I would love to. And so that night we did a song. He wrote it. We till 3 a.m. in the morning. Let me tell you about 3 a.m. in the morning for a senior citizen. A senior citizen, 3 a.m. in the morning is difficult. We got up. That next morning, there was an event with Roger Stone. There was an event with a lot of people at his private dinner. And later on, what we did was perform that song. It was called Gucci Granny. And I think some of you might have heard it. You might have known. It went viral for a while. It was about President Trump. And actually, Kentucky's Voice aired it as the first radio station probably here in Kentucky, and they played clip after clip. I was honored. It was meant to reach the youth. And I said, you're not going to get them with Kumbaya. If this is the political scene and this is the future of our America, is our youth, and we know that it is, we must continue to fight for it. And so what I did, made the song, and the youth paid attention. So it's called Gucci Granny. You can find it on YouTube. I made 2 others after that called Granny Save America. And I know you're kind of laughing out there, and that's okay because it's kind of a funny thing. And the last one was called Dear Mr. President, which I wrote and Dear Friends produced. And it was a letter to President Trump after he was shot. And I wanted to let him know that there's no other man like him. And that was my main phrase through my course. You can also listen to that YouTube. But that wasn't the end of my career. That was only the beginning. I started a group. I went to Washington, D.C., started a group called Republican Women's Federal Forum. This is a 50-year-old club that was established in Washington, D.C., so the women and the wives of the senators back then and the president's wives could have a say-so. And apparently back then, they didn't have as big as input as they have now. I'm not quite certain about all the history, but I do know that to be a fact. By the way, a little tidbit in here for a minute, guys. 2 days ago, on June the 4th, Texas, if you know what day that was, June the 4th, 1919, what happened on that day that was changed the world? Text us, give us your opinions, 571-0970. Went there, I said, hey guys, why isn't this somewhere else? Why aren't other women know about this platform? And they said, well, we've only kept it in D.C. I said, I see that at the Capitol Hill Club. So 3 times more I went. I had an ID. I said, okay, let's start a chapter. They said, let's do it. You'll be a prototype. I did. Women joined. It became successful. And we eventually evolved to Republican Women for Freedom. And we left the hierarchy of D.C. to try to do a grassroots patriot things. We still have residue of women in that club now. But that wasn't the end of my career. So I went on. I wanted to tell you one thing, and I think this is so vital to what your passions are and what you feel like, because who is the author and the finisher of our faith is God. The things that we do to push on, to go beyond boundaries, to restore our youth is not in always the science. It is in a spiritual connotation of what God can do for us. I am 73 years old. 73. There is no way that I can begin to think that I'm going to step out. I do every time. Every time God opens a door and says, no, you're going through here. So he wants me to continue, as is this opportunity, an honor to be on Kentucky's Voice. I have a lot to say, and I'm not afraid to say it. At times you will find me controversial. That's okay. I would rather be controversial and question the what appears to the world to be the norm than I would to be silent. Being silent achieves nothing. There's never any change for anything until you find the problem. When you find the problem, you call out the problem. When you call out the problem, you look for the solution to the change. That's what you must do. I went on, started this group. Then I was asked to be a national ambassador for Veterans for Trump and national ambassador for VFAF, which represents Veterans for America First. It is a Trump organization, and it helps veterans and change veterans, health care, and every other problem across the United States. I'm very active in that. I support it. Every time I get somewhere, I try to push. I've seen the personalization of what the VA system does for our health care reform. I fought for my husband. I still fight for my husband, who has been ill at the local VA, and I will continue to fight for veterans across the land. This is a major thing with the United Doctors of America, which I referred to earlier. They want to make sure our veterans, because let's face it, folks, when you think about it, where would you be? Would you be talking German or Russian? What would you do if our veterans of World War I, II, and III had not fought for us? They lay on the streets. They get denied health care. They don't get what immigrants get. They don't get hotels to stay in. So the veterans are major, major importance. And I want to shout out to VFAF as their national appointed ambassador, that I will continue to work with all these programs and these initiatives to make sure that veterans get a place where they need to be in this healthcare reform. I also went on, and then, I feel like I'm talking about myself, but I guess I am. I think that you need to really know who I am. Who is Diana Starr? What is she doing here? What does she have to say that I might be affected by? Not by emotion, but by the facts and information. So I went on to this event, United Doctors of America. And as I told you briefly before, there were across the board medical people, political people, even Hollywood stars. And it was in Palm Beach at the Trump International Golf Resort. It was packed. We had to turn around away people. A great amount of speakers. Newsmax was there, the former Medical Association, Dr. David. I could go on and on, a former Miss America. It was a fabulous event, and we learned a lot. But what we learned most of all was the problems. We learned per questions what was the problems. And one of the questions that I asked them when they took the question and answers segment of it, I said, I want to know, with everything that Fauci has done and the pandemic and the plandemic that went past, how are you doctors up here with your initiative that you want to regain your patients' trust again in you? How we know you're not going to sell us again and be afraid? Because let me tell you, people of America, people of Kentucky, I have heard it firsthand from prolific doctors from Connecticut, from New York, that they are afraid to speak out about their political affiliations. They were warned and given a slap on the wrist. They were told they needed to cease and desist talking about Trump, or they couldn't publicly talk about Trump. Is that constitutional? I ask you. These are the reforms that we have to have through this organization, through the big, beautiful bill, through the United Doctors of America. All these things have to be changed. All of these are changed because we go, we listen, we learn, and then we go home and we reflect on them. Does this fit my agenda? Does my spirit of God tell me this is the right thing? Does it tell me it's the wrong thing? So I was called this week by United Doctors of America, such an honor, and asked if I would take a Zoom call next week and would I be on their board. It is an auspicious board. It is such an honor I don't even know how to act. And I don't even know how I'm going to do everything that God prepares for me to do. But I can tell you this. I want to make sure that you listen to the next segment, because the next segment is going to blow this out the water. I have the next show that comes on, you're going to be blown out of the water. 5710970. The last thing I want to say is I want you to text. I'm going to give the Diana Star Award tonight to Target and Macy. Yay, for once. Target and Macy perpetuated Father's Day instead of the Gay Pride Month. Hallelujah. I'm glad. Who's going to get the Star Award next time? Watch and see. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Kentucky's Voice is going to continue to bring you the best information that we can give you and make you aware.